Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on our next webinar, which is about Spain's digital nomad visa. This law came into force. This law came into force in 2022 on the 20th December, and we had last year to assist clients with this digital nomad visa. And it's fair to say that during that process, the digital nomad visa applications and the clients that we've been dealing with has actually evolved as the Spanish authorities have basically got to grips with this new visa that they launched. So today we're going to be just talking you through a presentation about who can apply, what it entails, what Spanish residency is, and we'll talk about a little bit about the Beckham regime, and then we'll talk about some of the successful case studies that we've had in 2023. And I'm joined with my colleagues, Melanie, who heads up the visa team, and we've got Pedro, who is our specialist tax advisor, and then we've got my colleague Patricia, who is a Spanish lawyer and also joins us from the Marbella office. And we act for clients buying, selling, inheriting property all over Spain, also moving to Spain. And Melanie's team is very busy with non-lucrative visas, golden visas, student visas, and of course the digital nomad visa since that came into force the year before last. So without further ado, we'll start with the presentation. And basically, a kind of a key concept for people to bear in mind is that if you intend to spend more than 6 months in Spain, then you in a tax year, the tax year runs from January to December, then you become a Spanish tax resident. And for Europeans, it's basically if you intend to spend more than 3 months in Spain, then you have to apply for residency. It's not voluntary, it's actually an obligation to do so. So in effect, Spanish residency is a must for those intending to spend more than 90 days in Spain. Otherwise, if you want to spend less than 90 days in a 180-day period, you don't need a visa. But more than 90 days, that's when you will require a visa. So basically, the definition of tax residency is anyone that spends more than 183 days in a calendar year. And if you, for example, arrived on a Friday and went on a Saturday, that would actually be considered 2 days. So it's actually the days rather than the nights, which is considered is included in part of the calculation for the Spanish residency. And also the kind of three criteria is you're in Spain for more than 180 days. Spain is the base of your economic interest, and your spouse or minors are habitually resident here in Spain. So you might be traveling, but if your spouse and minors live in Spain and they minors go to school here, then you potentially could be considered a tax resident. But those requirements can be dislodged if you're a tax resident in another country. So that's the kind of general concept about Spanish tax residency. For example, if you arrived in September last year, you wouldn't be considered a tax resident for 2023. The tax residency would start now in 2024, and you'd have to apply for residency. So moving on to the next slide, just really touching on what I've already said. So if you're spending more than 90 days in a 180-day period, then you'll need to apply for a visa. And if you have a look on our YouTube channel, there's a useful video about how to calculate the 90 days in 180 days. Okay. So talking about the digital nomad visa, also known as the international teleworkers legislation. This, as I said, came into force on the 28th of December 2022, and it's Article 74, which is of more interest to us, because this is the article that deals with the actual the visa situation and the applications. So if you apply for you can apply for the digital nomad from Spain, and it's initially for a period of the duration of your contract or for a period of 1 year. And it's an authorization to live and work in Spain for a maximum of 3 years, and then it's renewable for 2 years. And as long as you haven't been out of the country in that 5 year period for more than 11 months and 6 months consecutively, you can then, after the 5 years, apply for a long-term Spanish residency. If the applicant applies for the digital nomad visa, of course, their direct family members can also join them, and they're allowed to reside and actually work in Spain. So an applicant's spouse could also be entitled to work in Spain, and they don't have to work for an overseas company. They can actually find work in Spain. And of course, what we're talking about when it comes to the digital nomad visas is we're talking about um, these are applications for people to work who do not live in the EU. If you already have an EU or you're a holder of an EU passport, then you can live and work in Spain, and you can apply for a visa. You can apply for residency in Spain if you intend to spend more than 6 months here. So who can basically apply for the visa? And what we're talking about is we're talking about qualified professionals who can prove that they are graduates or they are postgraduates with university qualifications, or that they come from recognized international business schools, and they've got professional experience at least 3 years in similar positions to their job title. And basically, non-EU citizens authorized to stay in Spain. So when you apply for this visa, you can't be in Spain irregularly, so to speak. So you couldn't come to Spain and say exceed the 90 days and then apply for the visa, because the Spanish authorities will see that you've been in Spain for those 90 days and they wouldn't grant that visa. You've got to come to Spain and be here, be here on a regular status and not have exceeded your 90-day period. So non-EU citizens authorized to stay in Spain to carry out work, or professionals who work remotely for overseas companies using online systems can apply for the digital nomad visa, and of course employees. So we've got basically professional people and employees. Okay, and basically when it comes to self-employed workers, they've had to they basically can carry out their work in Spain for their overseas companies, so companies not located in Spain, and that can represent up to 80% of their work. And they can carry out work in Spain for their company or for clients here in Spain, but that cannot represent more than 20%. So you can see where they're going here. They want you to be able to work in Spain, but working for overseas companies, so they can tax you here on the income that you generate. Okay, so we've acted for self-employed people, employees, and self-employed shareholders and directors in applying for their digital nomad visa, and we'll talk about that shortly. If you're applying for the visa, your company that you're working for, that you've had a business relationship with, has had to have been in existence for at least 12 months. When the law originally came out, basically we got a lot of inquiries through from people, for example, who didn't actually were say self-employed in their home country, but they didn't have a business relationship with a company. When we spoke to the unit in Spain that deals with these digital nomad visas as well as the golden visas, their advice there was, if you are self-employed, the best advice would be to basically incorporate a company and have a business relationship with that company, and that company has to have been in existence for 12 months, and then you have a contractual or a business relationship with that company that has been in place for at least 3 months. Because what they'll want to see when you apply for the visa, they'll want to see proof that you have actually been working for that company that's existed for 12 months and that you've received at least 3 months of income to qualify for the visa. Of course, if there isn't a social security arrangement between Spain and the country where you are currently employed or carry out your work, then you or the company that you work for will have to register to pay social security in Spain. So, for example, a non-resident Spanish company, say located in South Africa, would have to register here in Spain and pay social security on the income that you generate. Okay, and self-employed directors and shareholders can register with the Spanish tax system, which is known as RETA, and that's basically a tax system in that the more you earn, basically the more tax you pay subject to the Beckham regime, which will come on certainly shortly. But bear in mind, for example, citizens of the UK, there is a tax. There is an agreement between Spain and the UK for social security. So you can obtain proof that your company is paying social security for you in the UK, and that would be required in order to apply for the visa. So as soon as the visa is granted, you've got and you start working, you've got an obligation to register with Social Security and to take steps to carry out that. And you cannot register as an employee with a company, a subsidiary of a company that's in Spain, or a company that's just recently registered in Spain, and carry out work for overseas companies or individuals, because that would be considered an intercompany transfer. You're being transferred from one area of the globe to Spain, and that would be a different visa. It's permissible as well, but that would be a different type of visa, and it wouldn't be the digital nomad visa. These are the financial resources that a applicant would need to prove in order to qualify for the golden visa, for the digital nomad visa. So what we're talking about here is SMI is the interprofessional monthly rate of pay for professionals in Spain. And basically, you'd have to have a gross income of 31,752 euros. And these amounts are updated on an annual basis. So these are the amounts that were basically agreed with the Ministry of Labour and Social Security on the 15th of January this year. And if you have additional family members, and we're talking direct family members, so spouses or children, then you've got to add further monies to that. So, for example, a spouse and the main applicant would need 31,752 and 11,907 euros together in income that the main applicant is generating in order to be granted the visa. And if they had children under the age of 18, then or depends up to the age of 21, then they would need an additional 3,968 euros for each applicant. And the authorities will look at that. They'll want to see the payments made into your bank account in excess of these amounts. So Pedro, do you want to just touch on the Beckham regime?
Yeah, I am. So what you need to know is that you apply for the Beckham regime, okay? You will only be taxed, okay, on the income that comes from your work, okay? That means salaries, pensions, invoices that you make to your clients, etc., etc. Okay? The advantage of this regime, of this special tax regime, is that you will be taxed as a non-resident, okay? And non-resident has a fixed tax of the fixed tax rate of the 24%. Okay, this is up to 600,000 euros. Okay, so over 600,000 euros, you will pay 47%, but less than that, you will pay only 24%. Besides that, you need to the rest of the income that you have that you earn abroad of Spain. Okay, it will be taxed in the country where you earn that income. Okay, for example, inheritance tax, capital gain taxes, okay, will not be taxed in Spain.
Yeah, and then basically we've got an interesting situation, Pedro, with non-employees. So with non-employees, it's quite easy to register with the tax regime, but where we're talking about non-employees, where we're talking about non-employees, what they would have to do in order to qualify for the Beckham regime is that they have to prove that there's an innovative business, so that they're setting up something new, a special business. And unfortunately, we haven't had much guidance from the tax authorities about what that would be, and we are waiting for that. So if you weren't an employee, then it may be difficult to register under the Beckham regime, and then you would general taxation would apply to you. And for example, Pedro is our tax advisor here in the office. If you wanted to speak to Pedro, you can of course contact us, arrange a consultation. But each person's tax affairs are very different. And obviously personal. So we would suggest that these are the general points. But if you are going to apply for the digital nomad visa, we would strongly recommend that you have a consultation with either Pedro or another tax advisor or accountant to talk about whether you'd qualify, for example, for the Beckham regime, and if not, how much tax would be payable. Okay, so basically, so we act for clients who are married. We've got a non-EU, for example, non-EU spouse married to an EU passport holder, and in those situations, then the residency requirements are much easier, and you wouldn't have to go down the digital nomad visa route. But in effect, the EU passport holder would apply for residency here in Spain, and once they've got that, then their spouse would be able to benefit from that as well. And they have to prove lesser financial resources than the digital nomad visa. So you're talking up to 15,000 euros. This very much depends on the area in Spain that you apply for that residency, because it does vary from region to region. But generally, if you had 15,000 euros in your bank account, you would be covered. You have to register on the census. So if you're going to rent out a property, it's important that you insert in the contract with the landlord that you are allowed to register on the census, which is known as the padron. You would require medical insurance. If there's an agreement between your home country and Spain, then you could benefit from that medical insurance. Of course, you need a bank account, and you've got to basically apply for residency from a police station, and then present the online application for the non-EU passport holder. That's basically, I think is that it from, well, yeah, that's it from me. I'll now pass you over to Melanie, and she can talk to you about the experience that we've had last year up until recently with the successful digital nomad visa applications that we've processed. Melanie, over to you.
Hello, everyone. I've just put three main categories here. I just want to say we've had 100% success approval rate since the launch of the digital nomad visa. And these are the three main categories that we've been dealing with. The very first one, the directors. Some of you may be directors of your own UK limited companies. We talked about earlier, Alex mentioned earlier, if you're a sole trader and you don't have any business contracts in place, then put it in the wrapper. You would need to put it in the wrapper of the UK limited company and then wait for a year here. So if you are a director of your own UK limited company, you don't need to show contracts that you have with other businesses or anything like that. You just, and if you are a person of, I put person of significant control there, you would be considered self-employed in Spain. Okay, it doesn't matter that you may receive payments as a director of your own UK limited company through the PAYE system, okay, in the UK. That doesn't matter. You are still, or if you receive your payments in the form of dividends, you will still be considered self-employed in Spain. And that's been one of the biggest questions that we've had, and people understanding that when they are actually, you know, on the PAYE system, say for in the UK, that system doesn't exist in Spain, and basically you can't be employed by your own UK limited company if you are a person of significant control. And of course, you need documentation to prove all of this as well. And that's where Companies House, there's lots of documents on Companies House. And when we talked about the company being in existence, the UK limited company being existent, it's not just existence. That company's also got to have been active. Okay, you need to have a good a certificate of good standing. So you might have a limited company. There's been occasions where somebody's had a limited company and it might have been dormant for a year. It does need to be active. Okay, and then the other category is your employee of a UK company. You might not just be an employee of a UK company. You could be employed by a company abroad overseas, but you might be, for example, already working remotely in, say, the UK or another country. But for that, you need to show that the employment contract, okay, and you need to show what you are actually earning there, and you will receive the pay slips. And then the other category, the main category, I've put self-employed freelancers. Again, business contracts for the services that you provide businesses. So, for example, we've had somebody that works remotely in the UK, but has freelance or business contracts with company in the US. Okay, so that is acceptable. But of course, you should be, one of the things that they were asked for is the invoices. Okay, you're invoicing that particular business. And the only category that, one of the other things I would mention on here as well, which I haven't put on, is that the majority of them are you can obviously have dependent family members, okay, providing that you had the salary figures, the minimum salary figures earlier. You need to prove, so the main applicant who's applying for the digital nomad visa needs to prove they have sufficient gross salary to cover the family members as well.
Okay, that's great. Okay, what we're going to do now is we had some questions that were sent through to us, so we're going to go through those questions. We'll answer that, and then I can see the chat is getting quite busy as well. So whilst we respond to some of the questions we've had through, Pedro, Melanie, and I will look at the chat questions and take a selection of those as well and respond to them. Okay, so here was the first question, and this kind of is a good question because it kind of cements some of the information we've been providing. I'm an IT consultant and a director of my own company. I do consulting work from time to time. I also work on my own projects, and I'm planning to start selling a software project. I have developed software product I've developed. I read somewhere that you need to have a contract with a client employer for the duration of the visa. Is that correct? The duration of my contracts vary, but are typically 3 to 6 months. Given the nature of my work, can I still apply for the digital nomad visa? Melanie, do you want to come back to that?
Yeah, this is what I was talking about earlier. You've got a UK, I mean, it says UK company, UK limited company. You do not need to show these contracts. If you were a self-employed freelancer, my answer to that would be yes, you do need to show those contracts, because that would be the term of the visa would be based on those contracts. So you are a director of your UK company. So there's the entity, the UK company. So no, you do not need to show the contracts on there. It's more about proof that you are the owner of the UK company, that it's been established for 1 year minimum, actively trading, and also proving that what income you are receiving on a regular basis from that business.
Okay, that's a key point. What we were talking about earlier. So if you're a freelancer, you would have to prove that basically you've got those contracts in place. But our advice would be to incorporate a company, have the company registered for at least 12 months, and then apply for the visa, because that's the feedback we're getting from the Spanish authorities. But in this case, this person is a director of his own UK company, so he can prove that he's got that business relationship with it, and the company's been in existence for 12 months. He does say, given the nature of my work, can I still apply for the digital nomad visa?
Yeah, of course. If the work is remote, you're carrying out this work remotely, and you're using software systems, what systems you're using to carry out your work remotely, then yes, you can do that. And normally, I mean, the directors, the digital nomad visa approvals that we've had for directors have all been for 3 years, none less than 3 years. Where that will differ for an employee of a company, and also for a self-employed freelancer, depending on the contracts, the business contracts, and the length of those.
Okay, so basically, and they ask, what is the cost and how long does it take to process the visa application?
Okay, so the processing the visa application is 20 working days. What you've got to do is you've got to spend time gathering the documentation. So if, for example, your limited company is in the UK and you are entitled for that certificate of social security coverage in Spain, then that is a key document to obtain. Now, we've been experiencing last year, certainly in last year, from about March last year onwards, these were taking 15 weeks to come through. But we've started to see that timescale reduced down now, down to about sort of eight weeks there. So you need to spend some time, a couple of months up front, gathering the documentation.
Okay, and the costs involved?
Well, the costs involved, I mean, the costs are a lot less involved if you apply from Spain. Because, for example, if you apply from the UK or a consulate, your first fee is the application fee of £555. In Spain, it's €73.26. So there's a saving there. I always say, budget, it depends on the amount of documentation. And obviously a company director, I always find that company directors of their own limited company, there's a lot more documentation involved. And I'd allow up to the equivalent of, I'd allow up to €1,000 for all the documentation, translation costs and everything involved in that.
Yeah. So it's kind of, we're presenting, in effect, you've got to prove that your company is allowing you to work in Spain, or that you're, as a freelancer, you can work in Spain, that you've got financial resources to do so, contracts are in place, letters from your employers obtained. All that needs to be translated, and we need to see bank statements where you've been receiving the payments for your salary up to date, or any money from that company, such as dividends, and then basically that is presented to the authorities. So it takes time, and obviously there's costs involved in translations, etc. And obviously it depends on how many people applying, the costs vary. So if you do want a specific quote, please do drop us an email, and then we'll come back to you in that respect. So another question is, what rate of tax will I have to pay on my earnings? Well, we've already covered that off with the general comments about the Beckham regime. And the main takeaway from today is that if you are an employee, it's much easier to register on the Beckham regime, and up to 600,000 you'll pay 24%, which is a great saving. And then if you're basically an employee, then your company will continue to make, if you're an employee and there is social security arrangement between your country and Spain, then your company will continue to make social security payments for you in the home country. If not, your company will have to register here in Spain to pay social security, which we can help that company with. Right, further question. We are potentially looking at applying for the DNV residency authorization for an international teleworker, and would like to understand what costs and fees would be associated. So we've talked about that already. How is the process of registering the foreign company with social security? So in effect, a director on behalf of your company would have to sign a power of attorney, we apply for a Spanish tax number for that company and register the company with Spanish Social Security, and then taxes will be made on a quarterly basis. Next one. My inquiry regards the Social Security aspects of the digital nomad visa. I would like to know whether you recommend registering with British Social Security or Spanish Social Security. I don't believe it's an option. It says how easy is it to secure A1 form from HIRC and the S1. Melanie, do you want to kind of touch on that?
I mean the S1 form, as I've just said. I mean, if you'd have asked me, you know, sort of at the tail end of last year or around about October, I would have said the A1 form. It's not so much about securing it. It's about the time that HMRC take to dispatch it, and we were seeing, you know, delays of 15 weeks there. But we've had a few come through now, and they've surprised me because they've come through, you know, a lot quicker, within about 8 weeks. Okay, so it is, the A1 form is worth it. But what I will say to you is this, that if you are self-employed, or if you are a director of your own limited company, back in the days when it was taking 15 weeks, it wasn't necessary to actually present the A1 form, okay, because you were registering, you were going to register anyway in Spain on the Social Security. So we did put some through without the A1 form. Now for the S1 form, that's the NHS overseas team. So that's your transfer of health benefits from the UK through to Spain. So that's just a simple contacting the NHS overseas team. You obviously need to have been eligible for this. There's different eligibilities, but the S1 is normally if you're in receipt of a state pension, okay, then you're eligible for this, but it would need to be registered with the Social Security here in Spain.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so we're going into the chat now. We're going to go through some of the questions that we received in the chat. We've got a question here. It says, for tax purposes, what would happen if you returned to the UK for 2 months but continued to work? So presumably you mean that basically you've come to Spain, you've applied for the digital nomad visa, it's been granted, but then you have to go back to the UK for a period of 2 months. Pedro, I understand, and Melanie, I understand that under those circumstances, they would continue to pay tax in Spain on the income that they generate. Do you agree with that?
I mean, it depends on their status. If they're employed by a company, if they're employed by a company, they haven't yet registered on the Spanish system. I mean, the actual digital nomad visa does allow absences. So, but it's totally different if they are, you know, if we talked about the directors of their own companies and we talked about the self-employed, then there is a requirement for them to actually register as self-employed upon approval of the actual visa, because otherwise they will not be able to apply for their TIE residency permit. So that's the foreign identity card, without proof that they have registered.
Yeah, so that's quite an important point, isn't it? You are granted the digital nomad visa, you come to Spain, you register with the Social Security system, and then you apply for the TIE card, which is basically the Spanish residency card. It's like an ID card. So just bear that in mind. That's quite important. So absences are allowed. We would need to know whether you're going to be employed or self-employed, but basically you could return to your home country, but just bear in mind the whole purpose of the digital nomad visa is to work in Spain and to live in Spain. Okay, so I'm sole trader or autonomous, having an office in India. When I will come to on the DNV to Spain, do I have to bill for all my clients from Spain, or simply transferring the requisite amount to my Spanish account per month? So this is what we were talking about earlier on as a sole trader. What we would recommend is that you actually have a company in place, and you have a contractual relationship with that company. Your company bills your clients, and you, as an employee or a director, are then come to Spain and apply for the digital nomad on that basis. You have to. The company has had to have been in existence for 12 months, and you've had to have a business relationship with it for 3 months. Okay. So does income include dividend payments from a limited company or just monthly salary payments? Melanie?
Right. Different directors, are paying themselves different ways. You just need to prove that this is how you basically pay yourself. Okay. So if you pay yourself, because be careful with dividends, because this is profit share. So if you, for the work that you undertake, you pay it in the form of a dividend, then that's fine. It's the supporting documentation, okay, that proves that you actually receive your income through through as a dividend.
Okay. So there's a couple of other questions about the Beckham regime, but as I said, I think that's, if you wanted to follow up on that, please send us some information through about your personal circumstances, and we can come back to you, because that's tax and obviously it varies case to case. Another question here says, which case is easier for the digital nomad visa? To be the owner of an LLC, which is an American company, or to be autonomo, as in self-employed, in a non-EU country?
I mean, if they're referring to be self-employed, we're going back to the same. They're self-employed, but once again, are they self-employed? Who have they got business contracts in place, or are they dealing with the direct? Who's their client? Who are they working? What services are they providing, and to whom?
Yeah, but I mean, basically what we've come across, and it's easier to apply for the Beckham regime if you are registered as an employee. But I mean, part of this process as well, when we take on digital nomad visas, we do have consultations with clients and go through the circumstances and guide them in the right direction, and suggest that they obtain certain documentation which might not be in place already, setting out the paper trail, confirming their relationship with that company. Another question here is, if I were to work remotely for a US company, what, if anything, does the US company have to do regarding Spanish taxes, business entity in Spain, etc.? Would I have to pay US and Spanish taxes? So this is a really good question, because I think from American friends, the IRS don't let you go. So you, again, I suggest we kind of follow up with a tax consultation about that. But generally speaking, if you're an employee and you're authorized by your company to come to Spain and work in Spain, then you could apply for the Beckham regime, and then you pay tax in Spain on the income that you generate here. And if there isn't a relationship between Spain and the US for Social Security, then your company would have to register here in Spain to pay Social Security. Okay. Okay, I'm a director of my own company. I can work from anywhere. What documents will I need to show? Accounts. Will the amount of profit be an issue? I need to be in the UK for about 2 months. Is that an issue? Do I just show the amount I'm paid on bank accounts, or does it need to be pay slips? Melanie, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a director, it comes back to this. You're a director of your own company. We've dealt with ones where they're not on the PAYE system. Okay, so they receive all their income. They receive all their income through the dividend system for tax reasons. Okay, that's fine. If it shows it's consistent and they were receiving it, so you'll see that in your bank statements there. So you can just prove that you receive the regular income.
Okay. So we've got another question here. What do you have to prove to allow to? It says, what does a prove that you're allowed to work from Spain mean? Should the contract from the employer mention about Spain, or just stating that the employee is allowed to work remotely? would that be sufficient? So in effect, well, first of all, you can't be in Spain irregularly. So you've got to come to Spain legally, and you've got to apply for the visa within the permitted timescales. So again, for non-Europeans, that's 90 days in a 180-day period. And yes, we will, as part of the process, your employer will have to issue a letter confirming that you're authorized and can work in Spain, and there's sufficient IT systems in place to allow you to work remotely. Right. So do you pay Social Security in UK and Spain? No, you'd only pay Social Security in one country. Does Beckham's law really represent a saving for a long-term UK taxpayer? Or will HMRC simply change UK tax and make allowances for tax in Spain via the double taxation agreement? How do we extra ourselves from HMRC's grip? Well, that's a great question, and I'm afraid we can't give you the answer to that now. But what I can say to you is, you know, the Beckham regime, we've put in place the Beckham regime for our clients. They are employees of companies. They've moved to Spain. They're paying a certain amount of tax here. We generally say that the saving on the 24% compared to the general taxation regime is when you're earning, say, £50,000/euros plus. Okay. I think we've answered all those questions. If you've got any other questions, please put them in the chat. We'll give you a few more minutes to do that. And then Pedro, Melon, do you have any further comments?
No. We are actually, while we're waiting to see if anybody, we are now going on to renewals we're starting to do the renewals of the digital nomad visa. So
yeah. So basically, someone who initially got granted a authorization from their company to work here for a year, and that period has come to an end now. We've got to deal with that, complete that renewal, and it's presumably it's going through the same paperwork again. Is that right?
It certainly is.
Okay, right. So basically, just coming back, I'm a sole trader autonomo, and when I will come to Spain on a DV, do I have to bill for my clients from Spain? So what we said is, when you come to Spain as a self-employed person, we would recommend, because you're self-employed, we'd actually recommend that you incorporate a company in India, and that the company invoices those clients, right? And then you would be on a salary from your company. So there would be a contractual relationship. There'd be a contract of employment between your company and the Indian company. Okay, so you wouldn't bill those clients directly in India from here in Spain. Your Indian company would bill those clients. Okay. And then obviously the Spanish authorities want to see the payment from your Indian company to a bank account here in Spain. Okay. Basically, I cannot get private health insurance. How do I apply? I cannot get private health insurance. How do I apply for Spanish insurance as part of the Nomad visa process? I have a resolved pre-existing condition, which was either not possible or very expensive.
You just on this is that you let's not forget, for private medical insurance, okay, is not a requirement for those that are going to have to register as self-employed in Spain. So we can get rid of company directors there, and we can also get rid of the self-employed. We can get rid of the self-employed freelancers on that side of things. So that's the employees that we are referring to, where it is a mandatory requirement to have private medical insurance with a provider authorized to operate in Spain. I suggest we give you a link where you can get a quote, and so that you can see if you are accepted.
Okay, good. We've got 2 more questions, and then we'll wrap this up, and it will be available for viewing on our YouTube channel afterwards. It says, my husband will apply for an NLV, which is a non-lucrative visa, as he will be retired. That won't be an issue to me, will it, for applying for a Nomad visa?
Absolutely not. No, it's not. You know, it's not even an issue if your husband was an EU citizen. I'm applying for Spanish residency that route, and you wanted to apply for the for the digital nomad visa. So absolutely, absolutely not.
And we'd obviously, of course, would be delighted to act for you in the application for the non-lucrative visa.
And added to that, could I just add to that, if your husband is retired and in receipt of a state pension and eligible for the S1 form, get a joint S1 form that covers you as well, because spouses are eligible.
And of course, we can help with the non-lucrative visa and the digital nomad visa process.
Yep.
Last question is, do I pay tax on my worldwide income? So basically, as I said, on the tax side of things, it's important, I'd say, they contact Pedro outside of this. But if you're employed, if you're an employee of a company overseas and you qualify for the Beckham regime, you'll pay tax up to 24%, only on the income that you generate from the work you're carrying out in Spain. Any other income or that you generate, for example, I don't know, from a sale of a property, sale of shares, or inheritance, that would be covered by the tax in your home country. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening in on this seminar. Thank you for sending in your questions. We will be holding a further seminar on the non-lucrative visa process on the 14th of February at 4 o'clock. So if you'd like to join that, please let us know and contact us, and we'll add you to the invite list. And we will edit this video and then place this on our YouTube channel in the next few days. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel already, please do so. There's some very interesting videos there, especially about, for example, the 90 days. We've talked about the digital nomad. There was a session that we recorded last year about tax for digital nomad visas applicants. So have a look at that. And of course, moving to Spain, buying property in Spain. There are other videos about that. But in the meantime, thank you very much, Pedro and Melanie.
Yep.
And if you've got any other questions, please contact us at inquiries@mylawyerinspain.com or go onto our website, mylawyerinspain.com, and fill out our contact form. Thank you very much.